2 seconds before. All right, guys. Why am I always the one who has to introduce everything? Why can't like one of you like step up to the plate and say, "Hey guys, blah 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 blah."
You don't know how to stop talking.
I do. I talk a lot. You're frozen. There you go. I talk a lot. All right, so we're here with John Sincaglia, resident expert. Are you in Florida now, John?
I am a permanent Florida resident.
Oh man, are you living somewhere where they at least have like Taylor ham?
Actually, I haven't seen Taylor ham down here.
Oh man,
or pork roll for that matter.
Oh no,
I don't know. What are you gonna do?
That's
Yeah.
tragic. Can we ship him one? Is there a local deli that we could ship an entire sleeve?
I mean, there's a lot of good breakfast places and lunch places here, but pork roll has not been seen.
That's messed up. Do they have diners? Do you at least have a diner over there?
Diners, not really. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of great breakfast places. I go out, my next door neighbor and the two guys across the street, directly across the street and next to him, we have a Saturday morning tradition for like 7:30. We go out for breakfast and we go to, several different places and they're great,
You want to come back to New Jersey, don't you?
No, I don't. I'll tell you something. I mean, right now it's raining here, but it's also, it hasn't, I mean, look, it's one of the reasons we came here is we like warmer weather. And there were other reasons. I didn't want to stay in New Jersey. My son lives in Virginia. There was no point to keep a property in New Jersey anymore.
So where do you live in Florida?
It's in Bradenton, which is just north of Sarasota on the West Coast.
Beautiful. I've been there.
Yeah.
All right. Did you just ask for someone's address publicly?
Oh, oh my God. So we should tell John. So John, somebody like we're not going to go into any names here, but we had somebody, a new parent who's I think recent to this country in general, who wrote an article, and somebody on their side basically went through voter rolls and tried to find out this guy's address. It was like the creepiest thing, man. It was really, really weird.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes.
You do? Holy cow.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, we're not going to mention any names.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get to business here. Enough with the shenanigans. Shauna and Laura always want to kind of take us off topic.
Right.
So John, you got to see the last two Board of Education meetings. And I think it's important for people, just as a rundown, John has served on the Berkeley Heights Board of Education for years, and before that, he was a business administrator for other districts, and he's been in education. Sounds like your entire career, a teacher, all the way up.
I would say if you included my service on the Board of Ed, it was probably over 45 years total. Yeah, man.
So we have a wealth of experience here. So John, like just your initial impressions of the last two meetings, like as you watch them and as you have a chance to reflect on them, what were your takeaways?
Well, let me start by, some of the things I've seen, which the idea of these policies that got passed in the lame duck time, which obviously were restricting the ability of board members to do what they're elected to do. I have to say that, I served with, my time on the board, the Berkeley Heights board. Helen was president for most of that time. I was president for a short while. Paul Beiser was president for several years. And my last year or two, Doug Reinstein was. And regardless of who was president, there was never a situation where board members were not allowed to speak their mind about anything that came up. Okay? We didn't have this business of you can't talk about this now, you can't bring this up now. It might get voted down, but the point is we had the ability as elected officials to speak our mind on anything that came before us.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as the case now.
We had a PTO person, right? So we also have to keep things confidential and anonymous now for some people because they're getting kicked out of organizations if they speak up as well. Like this whole thing about not being allowed to speak is like permeating throughout the whole community. In any event, we had an article from a parent volunteer who kind of brought that up. I think there were 3 policies. I forget what they were. 0155. What were the other 2? Whatever. The one policy had to do with the 48-hour notice. The other one
Right.
had to do with committees, and then there was a third one that had to do with superintendent picking something or other, whatever.
Oh, the board president appointing people to committees without the
Consent of the board.
basically the
Yes.
advice and consent of the full board. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the PhD in math not being on the finance and facilities committee. That's how that lands. So talking about the budget, you know, I don't know if you got a chance to look. Did you get a chance to look at the audit report, John, or no?
Not really. No.
So I have a question about that. So I looked at the so I'm going to pull this up because this might be so I looked at the last few years and there's a few questions I have, right? So when I look at the dashboard, I also had Greek pizza last night, which was really good. I think I'm on this like Greek thing.
I had DeMayo's.
Nice.
I'm not going to knock the Mayos. He's okay.
By the way, I want to just say, Shauna, was that your son that you were? What happened here? Oh,
John is screen sharing. My son, what?
And was it the swimming championship?
Yeah, the boys just went up against Homedale, which is a really, really, really tough team. Unfortunately, we did not win. But the girls did. The girls won a sectional title, so that was exciting.
Yay.
You know, I just want to say, just as an aside, when my son was at GL, he was on the swim team, and we had 7 or 8 boys only on the team.
Wow.
And it's amazing how far the boys swim team has come over the years. I mean, we really struggled, and now it's really amazing how good they are.
Yeah, they are
Right.
pretty good.
Yeah, but aside that, okay.
I'm going to share this with you. I'm sorry, guys. So I looked at the last since 2019 and total revenue versus total expenditures. And this is the thing that's really confusing, right? And Shauna, Laura, when was that fiscal cliff comment? Was that in 2022 or 2021?
I want to
No.
say 2022.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at this, our total revenues, right? 2019, 57 million. We spent 56. We have a net surplus or excess of $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
2020 excess of 700,000. 2021 excess of 653,000. 2022, which is when we kind of went to town. I don't know if that was the fiscal cliff or not. There was also like Cy identified some funny business going with transfers. We only had 25,000, but here in 2023 we're at $1 million. Like, where is this money going? Right? So is this typical, John? Like, is it typical for?
I mean, I would say that, you know, from a standpoint of what you budget, I always felt you should be accurate with it around 95 or 96% of what you anticipated. You always want to make sure you have some contingency in. Obviously you're not allowed to overspend your budget. That 25.8 is frightening. I know that one year back in my professional career, I think we ended the year with only maybe about 80,000 left, and that was probably on a less than $40 million budget. And I was scared to death, you know, when we were in June. This is frightening that it would have been that close. When you're getting to that point, somebody has to say something to stop spending, stop doing certain things, so that you don't run the possibility of running into a deficit. And they didn't do it.
Well, I'm more concerned about the 25,000 to me is actually, so I see this differently, which I could be, you know, wrong, but I feel like looking at seeing the $1 million and the 700, like seeing those large numbers is frightening to me.
I would say, generally speaking, I would be probably spend about 97 or so percent, 98% of what was budgeted. So
Okay.
on a say a $60 million budget, you know, I'm going to have left, what's 1%, $600,000. So that's not crazy. You know, as the numbers get larger, it's a little bit different. I was dealing with budgets a little smaller, you know, again, you know,
Right.
I mean, my professional time of putting budgets together ended in the mid 2000s, you know, the first decade.
So if we were to do that, so you said about 97%. Let me
Yeah.
let me look at that. So I mean, I can, okay, Google, what is 97% of $69 million? Yeah, so you'd be okay with like, looks like about 3 million left over, which is
Well,
fine. I mean, that's your
well,
opinion.
wait. What the question is, what was the budget for that year? That, you know, the revenue, I mean, the revenues may have come in higher than what was anticipated. For example, you know, you might have realized, remember, going back to when I saw Julie Cott put budgets together, okay? They didn't anticipate enough interest income. And I remember Tom Forager pointed out, aren't interest rates going higher? And they saying, well, we're being conservative. It was obvious, you know, what you could get on certificates of deposit and money market accounts, that you were going to do better than what you were doing in the early, especially in early COVID. And I guess the other question would be the tuition revenue that might come in, particularly from special ed kids that we were able to put into particularly our deaf and hard of hearing program.
Well, that was well funded. Now there are a couple of question marks, like for example, on general admin. Let me go. Is this okay, guys, or do you guys have other things you wanted to talk about?
No, I just like listening to John speak.
She means me, John.
No, I do not. I absolutely do not.
So the other thing that's a little weird, and I asked the business administrator about this. If you look at general administrative support,
I do. He's with
Sean, you want to put yourself on mute, or?
Yeah.
I think she took a phone call. Can we just mute her?
I don't know if I can mute her.
Yeah.
I'm going to remove her from the call.
Okay.
And then she can come back in. So if you look at this and look at our per pupil, let me just go view.
Well, John Paul, before you start, my questions to Mr. Sincaglia would be, what, if you know, I think we're unsure of what general administration support services and miscellaneous expenditures even means. Do you have any idea?
I think that's like assistance and stuff.
Let me see. This is support services.
Yeah, general administration support services.
Hold on one second, because I want to pull out my old.
I think that has to do with like secretarial staff and stuff for like the top level staff. I think that's like central office and stuff.
Let's see, support. Yeah, it would be
salaries.
All the salaries, which would include the superintendent and the secretaries. I'm not sure where they're putting the assistant superintendent. There's some question about where that they might go. Audit fees, various professional services, postage, telephone, supplies, any judgments against the district, miscellaneous.
So that's it.
Well, I mean, I know Tom Majewski had a judgment of a couple of $1,000s for an Oprah thing, so that's not that significant. I mean, it's significant that it happened, but not in terms of the amount.
But there were others. There was another one. There was another one that was pretty significant, actually.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at this, like we are like through the roof on this compared to other districts.
Obviously. Yeah.
But that's the other thing that's really strange about it, though, John, is even if you wiped out that 300,000, let's just imagine that we didn't spend a dime. Let's imagine we didn't spend a dime on miscellaneous expenditures, which is where this line is, that 300,000.
Yeah.
We would still, under that general category, still have the highest per pupil cost, let me go to that tab. We would still be at 1,086,000. We would still have the highest spend and the highest per pupil cost. Maybe not the highest spend, but the highest per pupil cost in that category. So when you think about, so 300,000, that miscellaneous 300,000 is a subcategory.
Okay, that miscellaneous, yeah, you know what? I was speaking about the whole general account, general administration. Yeah, miscellaneous expenditures. I'm looking at the last budget I put together. My last actual on that, and this is all right. This is 16, 17 years ago. Was like $66,000.
Well, we spent 300,000.
300, yeah.
But that general category, 1.4 almost, and we're through the roof on that. Now, the other question I had for you, John, and again, I don't mean to quiz you. If you don't know, you don't know. Some of this stuff might be differently defined too. Is improvement of instruction. What is that? What is improvement of instruction services? Is that training? What is that category?
Well, you would have the special services director should be in there. District-wide curriculum development, the administration of basic skills. So that stuff's all in there. I mean, when I say to special ed, even though special ed is a separate category for instruction, the supervision of it comes in that area. And that's a significant expense, obviously, for the director and obviously the supervisor as well, plus their secretaries.
Well, right, and we also
that would be true for any district.
It is, but we have the highest per pupil spend on that as well. So that's important. That's good to know. That kind of makes things a little bit easier. So those were I had a couple of other questions I sent him. But the other piece of it too is that we actually added. Let me see if I can find that email. Well, I'll post it later. But I think we added, like, our enrollment went down. Our enrollment went down, has been going down for 6 years. Despite that, we've added, like, I think 12 administrative positions. I could look at that a little bit. Let me see.
Well, yeah, the enrollment was going down. Even the last several years I was on the board. I mean, and I left the board at the end of 2016.
What is that? Is it that people are having fewer kids, or?
Well, I guess it's a variety of things that or maybe that people are sending them to private or parochial. I mean, I mean, you'd have to ask the demographer what's going on there. I don't know that I'm, able to give you an answer on that. I know that, the district is supposed to do enrollment projections every so often and get a demographer to do evaluations based on birth records and so forth. And we used to do that, again, during the time I was there. And it's something that all boards, unless the state changed the requirements, are supposed to do periodically.
Mm-hmm. So, right. Well, I would say that I haven't looked at the other districts. New Providence enrollment has not really it hasn't been labile. It's been pretty consistent year to year. So our enrollment change is down by 128 students from 2019.
Really?
Yet we've added 12 other positions and 25 instructional positions. So there's been a reduction in enrollment, yet we added 37 new positions over the last 4 years.
Yeah, you gotta wonder. You gotta wonder.
So
yeah.
that doesn't make much sense to you either, then.
No. I mean, and I spoke about this in the past. The why we needed a second assistant superintendent, why we needed an assistant to the business administrator, things that we never had before, things that we never needed before, things that were properly handled by the existing people, whoever they were, in those positions.
Yeah. Sean and Laura, do you guys have any questions? I have a shit ton I want to talk about, but like I don't want to dominate, as I'm often accused of doing.
Well, you do it so well, so I would just say carry on, and I'll jump in if I have something to ask.
All right. So, John, you wanted to talk a little bit about the transportation thing that went on at the first or second board meeting when Cy was asking for that information, and
Yeah,
kind
you
of was
know,
like,
the thing right off the bat was that, you know, and you pointed this out, I think I saw on one of your newsletters, that her question was, well, why didn't we have the report? It was one thing that we couldn't have the person there that night. That was understandable. But why didn't we have the report was done? Why wasn't it there? And of course, the BA went round and round and deflected it to another situation altogether without ever answering that. And unfortunately, Cy didn't stay on point, okay, which he should have, to say, why don't we have if the report is done, yes, we're not ready to hear the presentation yet, but we should have the report. And there was no reason why they didn't.
well, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Sincaglia,
Speaking
because
of,
we Oprah'd email communication on transportation, and Dipti, Cy, and Natasha sent multiple emails to the business administrator asking for the report after that meeting.
Yeah.
And they basically told them that they were not allowed to get the report unless there was a presentation, unless they sat with them and walked through the data with them. And then you had, of course, you know, Pam, basically, this is an OTMA violation, which it wasn't. But they just kind of deflect. I mean, it's been like they've been asking for this information for about a year now, right? I think it's close to a year, right? And like, you don't need a consultant to tell the public what the parameters were for the past 2 years. The consultant's not going to know that. You're going to know that. That you don't need a consultant to tell the public how you've been running the program. And so this whole thing that they're trying to make this about safety doesn't answer any of the questions of how we kind of potentially had the service that lost that you know, basically with that, because we didn't charge, resulted in $300,000 of lost revenue, and this weird game of some parents getting free transportation and other parents having to pay $1,000. You know, and there's a big question in my mind as to whether this is like vote, you know, whether this has to do with votes or elections, to be honest with you.
I mean, for years, a district for kids who lived within the 2 mile limit or the 2.5 mile limit for high school, if a district thought that there was a hazardous situation, they could have what they called a hazardous route. Okay, that was their choice. And in some cases, it's necessary because, you know, there's places where you have highways like up in Parsippany bisecting the town and so forth. And you could call that courtesy busing, but there had to be a rationale as to why this neighborhood got it and these people who might be closer or maybe even further away didn't. And I can't believe that nobody ever had an answer for that. There had to be a rationale. And I don't understand why it could never be answered. At some point, I mean, at some point when somebody came in, this first issue came up, I guess it was when Cott was the BA. Okay. All right. If she didn't know, it should have been, okay, here are the routes. Why is this a courtesy route? And why are these people not getting it? That should have been pretty easy to find out.
mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's right. Like, what's the criteria? And I think, well, for me, I could only come to one of two conclusions. Either, I mean, there's like a whole ton of incompetence running that, you know, in terms of, and I'm not saying one specific person, but I mean, how that's thought of, or that, it was very deliberate and it had nothing to do with hazardous routes and it had more to do with self-interest. I can't come to any other conclusion as to why after a year you wouldn't be. It has to be one of those two things. Otherwise, after a year of asking for this, you run this program. How did you decide it? Like, how did you make the decision?
Yeah.
Like, it's a simple question to answer.
I would have guessed, okay, and this is a guess on my part, that whatever was going on, okay, was perpetuated for whatever reason. But when it was brought up as to like, we can't accommodate everybody, we got people paying subscription, there had to be a rationale to say, why you get it for free and why I don't. And actually, there was a point back when I was a county business administrator in Morris County where the state was really forcing districts or trying to discourage people from offering courtesy busing unless it was proven to be a necessary thing for hazards. There was one particular district where kids had to walk under a railroad trestle, and there was no sidewalk, and the district refused to provide busing because it was within the limit. The parents went ballistic, but the point is the district held firm. We couldn't force them to do it. Had they done it, we would have said it was okay. But I'm saying the state was not a big gung-ho in favor of courtesy busing because it was an expense that they felt could keep taxes down if you didn't provide it.
Shauna, what did you want to say?
No, I was just going to say my view of it leans toward it's something deliberate. It's something that doesn't have any real criteria. And the reason I think that is because in those emails that we OPRA'd, the reason the business administrator wanted to sit down and only present it on his terms to them was because in his words, he didn't want them to misconstrue the information.
You know, if you're a new board member, the first time you see an audit, it's pretty daunting, okay? There's a lot of detail in it. But you don't, now you get it, you look at it, and then you ask questions about, can you explain this to me? Can you explain that to me? It's not like you'll only, I'll only give it to you with my presentation. Board members are intelligent people, okay? They're elected to do the bidding of the public. And they, it's their job, again, not to run the district, but to see that it's well run. And if they need a primer from someone, they should ask for it, but not be told that's the only way you're going to get the information.
Yeah.
Is it primer or primer? What's the right way to say that? Primer?
Primer?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I know.
Oh.
I was an English minor too.
Yeah.
But I was going to say this is sort of what's been happening over the last 3 to 5 years within the administration is that even the simplest of explanations requested that do not need explanation or a closed door meeting are the only ways that information is offered, which seems a little nefarious, right? Like we're not gonna tell you the answer, but you come to us and we'll explain.
All right, so you're telling me that as of today, the board members still don't have the transportation report?
Correct.
No, they asked for it. Like 3 different board members have asked for it separately, based on the emails that we received.
Yeah,
but somehow
it's been in the district's hands for about a month now.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Actually, more 2 months.
I mean, it has to be,
Yeah,
but
right,
the data's been there for a whole year. Like the data's been there for ever since this shit started, right? So
right. We're not keeping this data with, a paper, a legal pad and a pencil. Like it is in a database somewhere, right? The busing routes are drawn from a database. So it seems very, very shady.
Yeah.
Right. And so the other part that connects to this is shady as shit versus this is complete stupidity, because it's one or the other, right? But yeah. I'm with the shady as shit is, when they did the reconfiguration, it was perfectly okay for kids to cross over these fucking railroad tracks, right, to go to school, and all roads are safe. Then suddenly, when this shit was exposed, it suddenly became, well, we have hazardous roads. I mean, so I don't know for a fact that this is shady as shit, but like you're holding on to reports, you're not letting people see it. 1 year the roads are terrible, and 1 year the roads are great. You're not willing to give data out. You're reporting inconsistent numbers between the state and what you're telling the public. What are people supposed to think?
Well, let me just go back. I know that years ago, for example, with courtesy busing, they used to bus everybody. This is even before we had Mary Kay McMillan, when the kindergartners were in the neighborhood schools. Every kid was entitled to be bused for kindergarten, okay? which I thought was somewhat ridiculous. Some kids would live across the street and, but that was courtesy busing because a lot of those kids clearly didn't live beyond 2 miles. Now that was stopped, okay? Was stopped for, well, I guess it wasn't stopped. When Mary Kay came into existence, when it was all the K and first graders there, I think everybody was pretty much being bused there. And at some point, I think that they stopped that.
Yes. I think it was in Dr. Varley's second year with us. They, at the beginning of this discussion around this fiscal cliff, and the busing was one of the first things they cut, the courtesy busing.
Okay. Yeah. But other courtesy busing somehow managed to exist and nobody knows on what basis.
Right. So there's students, I could be wrong, but I believe that there are, at least in one of the board reports from last year regarding busing transportation, it seemed, the inequity is that there are students, I believe at Thomas P. Hughes that receive courtesy busing for whatever parameters the district decides. And there's no courtesy busing for anyone in Mountain Park. And you have a lot of the Free Acres kids who are off Emerson, which was at one point deemed a hazardous road area. So again,
because there's no shoulder and no sidewalk in parts of
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I would think you could clearly make a case for that it being a hazardous route.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Mystery continues.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to say about as far as like I think there's also like over the last 3 years, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people didn't even know that courtesy busing existed. Like a lot of the parents that were paying for subscription busing weren't aware that there were parents that were actually getting the service for free, and that kind of blew up last year as well. Wait, we have like a live feed from somebody who knows. Hold on.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's not somebody who forgot to mute themselves when they took a phone call.
Wait, guys. Hold on, this is
Oh,
breaking
God.
news.
Be quiet back there! These roads are slick! Hey, Cartman. What? Are you gonna share any of that cake with the rest of us? Let me think. No. Come on, fat ass. You shouldn't be eating all that cake anyway. It's chocolatey and delightful. Give us some, Cartman. Be quiet back there! Whoa, dude. The road is really snowy out there.
Anyway, well, we're not going to get much information from them. That's one of my favorite clips. What ends up happening is that the bus kind of goes next. Well, it's a whole thing. You should
Off
watch
the
it.
cliff?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's a really funny episode. I don't know. It was the only way I could work this in because we were talking about buses, and I had to find a way to work that thing in. And this seemed like an opportune time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all the better for it.
Oh, sure.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts, guys, before we ended?
I wanted to. You would ask me, about some of the meetings. The one thing I found interesting was the business about who was going to sign checks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Right. About that.
now I got to tell you something. I mean, first of all, you come into a district, you should know who's signing the checks, not guessing, well, is it this person? Is it that person? There's already a procedure in place, the way it's being done, the way it's been certified proper by audits previously, by previous business administrators, previous boards of education, not saying, well, I think it should be this. I think that flabbergasted me because the business administrator was there and already he had obviously approved payments. And so his signature was on stuff. It sounded like he wasn't aware of who was signing what.
Yeah, this is I've never seen this in 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And that kind of the warrants issue.
Yeah. The other thing is that I've, in all my years working with various boards, including the Berkeley Heights board, I never saw a situation where the attorney, inserts themselves into the activity as opposed to saying, Mr. Attorney, we have a question for you, and then get their advice.
Dude, that dude was trying to save his job.
Yep.
I mean, his ass was sweating. He's like fucking running from one person to the other, screaming at
That-
people.
That
That
killed me
was a-
when he kept running back and forth between Angela and Pamela and whispering in their ears.
Yeah.
Dude
Like,
was
what the heck?
panicking. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that bothered me about those meetings was like just them stopping people from introducing motions. Did you catch that? Like,
Yep. Yeah. And also this business of policy saying it must go to the policy committee. That's a choice of the board. The board
Right.
could say we'd like the policy committee to review this, as opposed to saying we can't do anything unless the policy committee. You know, this business of Stanley saying we function by committees. That's a choice of the board. The board is always a committee of the whole and can do things on their own without delegating some of the committee anytime they want. And to say otherwise is incorrect.
and disingenuous. I mean, I think really it's disingenuous because I think there's intention behind that. They're just trying to make everything. They're basically trying to burn 12 or 13 meetings so nothing gets done, and it's just going to be like mired, unless hopefully Gail. Let's see if Bradford changes. Let's see if.
Now, I tell you, and I sent a letter to Palmieri, supporting Dipty, and I opted not to share it with the community. It was amazing what he wound up doing. I don't know Palmieri at all. I don't know what his background is. I don't believe he was ever a school superintendent. When I was a county business administrator, the county superintendents, to a person, except for one guy who was a career guy in the Department of Ed, were all retired school superintendents. Unless you're someone who's been in the central office, you can't function in that position. You've got to know the overall arrangement of how districts operate. And that would be true of county business administrators. I think the county business administrator is still the same person. I'm not sure. But most of them were also retired business ministers, like I was when I was asked to fill in, for those couple of years that I did that.
Yeah, I think the choice he made was really just not to piss everybody off. She's also a former educator, so there are some people who believe that he was trying to appease the BHCA. I don't know. There's all these theories going around. I don't know how you land on her as president. I mean, thinking about Dipty, her qualifications, her background, and how she's handled herself in meetings. But look, I'm going to be completely skeptical. I'm hoping to God that this year was an act on her part to secure the presidency, and then the real Gail Bradford, who actually has a brain, comes out and starts conducting herself properly in meetings.
I thought when she ran, her the kind of things she said, I thought she would be an independent person. I thought obviously she was going to be an advocate for the professional staff, and when the decision was made to get rid of some of the supervisors and stuff last year, she just seemed to cave in on that, which really surprised me, despite the fact that her colleagues, teachers and administrators, were saying, don't do this, despite the fact they were going against what their boss wanted to have done. And she, just didn't listen. I know it was a hard choice you had to make, but there were other choices that could have been made, such as cutting back on the amount of attorneys that we use.
Yep. Well, there was one person who didn't believe any of the bullshit she said. Do you guys remember who that one person was?
Yes.
Yeah. Who was it? Say it, Sean.
It was you.
Me. I didn't believe a fucking word. I wanted to hear that.
So do we want to take bets on whether they'll let Dipty be vice president or not?
No way. I think that's
care.
it's going to get kicked back to Palmieri.
According to what his letter said, is that if they don't, if it's another 4-4 split, he'll make the decision. You don't think he'd pick her?
No.
I don't know the guy.
He'd even pick a board member. He just might pick somebody random.
I mean, he might pick her, but I would like to see, there's all this talk, we've got to work together. And yet they never, it's words. Their actions never back up those words. And we've seen Dipti and Natasha be the ones to reach across the aisle and say, okay, let's do this. I would love to see them say, okay, let's make Dipti the vice president, but I don't know that they're going to do it.
Yeah, and in all honesty, the vice president,
It's kind of meaningless, right?
it's kinda
I really
meaningless.
don't think Dipti should take it. Like, let Pam or let Penna, let them have it. Who cares?
Oh, please don't let Pam have some.
Actually, I would. Okay,
Okay.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I'm not going to comment on it either.
But I mean, I was in support of Dipti. I thought that, I thought there needed to be a change in the leadership and the way things were run. And it wasn't coming from the current administration of the board at that time.
Yeah.
No. All right, guys. Anything else before we wrapped up?
Not really. I mean, I have to say that, now being a resident of the Sunshine State, I still pay a little bit of attention to stuff that goes on in Berkeley Heights. But
No, please do, John. We need your eyes on this shit. Yeah, we do.
yeah. But
It helps to have a voice of reason and somebody who's been there.
Well,
somebody who can speak with
And
authority.
I also was glad to see that Dennis Smalley made a comment. One of my former colleagues, also questioned what the heck was going on with reorganization. And I felt he was not in favor of the kind of things that were going on. A little disappointed in what another board member said, and somebody who I had respect for.
Oh well, yeah, I knew her. That man, I'm not even going to go into that. But I was not surprised that she came out the way she did and acted the way she acted. Not surprised at all by that, John.
I guess the overarching thing to me is that costs have gone up significantly, performance has gone down.
So is enrollment, right?
Yeah.
Despite having full day kindergarten, despite that coming into play, we still have declining enrollment, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, and why there are people out there who think things are working well. The leadership hasn't done the job. If it's to support people who you think were a good person, that's one thing. It almost seems that all that's gone on for the last couple of years is because they didn't like Cy.
That's it. That's the only reason this exists, John, is because I don't like Cy, and I'm gonna, it's crazy.
Well, to me, it amounts to people who, and I want to make this an analogy of people who say, I won't vote for the Republicans because I hate Trump, regardless of the fact of how bad they think the current administration is doing stuff. That's the overarching thing, and so therefore nothing else matters. I can understand you saying I don't like Trump, but I also can't understand people saying that like, for example, our southern border is in good shape, stuff like that. Yeah. But that's a whole nother. I mean, it's
another episode.
They're not looking at the big picture. Let's put it that way.
Well, the big picture is full of morons, man. The two parties are I'm done with both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought this was good. We kind of hopped around. I didn't talk as much as I normally do.
Let me ask you a question, John. With these things that you do you have an idea of what your viewership is eventually from?
So for our videos, we don't get, I would say a good video, we range from getting like 150 to 2,000.
Really?
It depends, right? Our print is doing really well. I mean, last year for not Time Magazine well, we're talking about, we're Berkeley Heights Community Watch, right? But I mean, last year we got 100,000. I don't know, I forget what it was, but a lot, hundreds of thousands. We're getting at least anywhere between 200 to 300 visitors a day. And for a little print blog, that doesn't really spend a lot or anything on advertising, we might run an ad here and there. And that, most influential people in town either hate and talk down or I think the mayor likes us.
Well, it's interesting,
I don't
the
know.
fact that, both the mayor, okay, and the town administrator have never had a problem of being on with you. And I can say this, I get along with Angie very well. I was a member of the Republican committee. I didn't vote for Angie, okay? But I get along with her, okay? And, that's what it's all about. That's what you talk about, working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what she's nailed. Angie has nailed that.
But I would even say it's a testament to a role in leadership, in that there have also been members of town council who we have, all of us on Community Watch, have gone after, but that they've agreed to come on and talk. And I think it takes a true leader to be able to, leave the BS and have a conversation. And I think it's meaningful. That's all.
It's
I'll
also
say.
a testament to my good looks.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
I don't think John.
I'll tell you, your articles are on point. You're pointing out a lot of good stuff. I think I have to say this. I think that sometimes the one thing I have to say was that I think that Cy in particular sometimes nitpicks too much. She deals with things that were missing the big picture, like the thing with the transportation report. She should have stated, the point is, the report is here. Why don't I have it? Never mind the guy can't be here. I understand that. I want to read it so I'm better prepared to ask questions and learn from him when he does show up. And
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that, John. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dipti and Natasha, I think they have all their, so I wish they all had elements of each other's personality.
Too.
Huh?
I said Cy brings up a lot of good stuff, but I'm saying sometimes she gets lost in the weeds.
I know, but you need, the thing is, like, she's hard nosed, and like with these people, man. So I agree with you on that. I wish they all had a little bit of each other's personalities in them, where it wasn't like, they all could bite back. I think they all have a lot of strengths, but I do agree that Cy can sometimes sort of go on and on,
Yeah. Well, the thing too, though, with Cy is that all it would take for her to ease up is if anybody from that, side of things would acknowledge that she knows what she's talking about. She does amazing research, and all they would need to do is find something where they could say, hey, that's great, Cy, that's a good idea, let's look into that. And half of her,
no, they just want to destroy her.
Half of her Cyness would disappear if she had any kind of support from them.
No, they just want to destroy her. I mean, the way what they did with the ethics thing 2 years ago, like, they complain about us writing about them. Like, nobody ever did to them what they did to her.
They've done.
They really hate her, and they just want to. They have absolutely no regard for her.
By the way, where does that stand in terms of the ethics charges?
They threw out most of her.
I'm talking about the charges against the board members who allowed the attorney.
They were all validated by the SEC. Go ahead, Shauna, talk about it.
Yes, it has been. Boy, it's been a long time. All of the hearings and arguments have wrapped up. All of the filings. What's happening right now is we are just waiting on a judge to make his ruling. And I've been told by the attorney, for my attorney, that it could take a year or more because the courts are so backed up.
Yeah.
And I guess they have to take special education cases first. Those take precedence. So, every single person that was initially involved in that could very well be out of office before we see any kind of resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the pick-me-up, Shauna. Great fucking job.
Yay!
Well, it's all the legal stuff. It just takes forever.
It takes forever.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you so much for, man, really, we're going to probably, we'd like to have you at least twice a year, if that's okay.
Yeah. I don't mind. The thing is, I'm getting further and further away from what's going on, but I mean, you know, there's a way to do things. And the way Berkeley Heights board and administration is functioning now isn't the way to do things. You know, the transparency has been lost. And I'll tell you something, you know, people criticize Doug Reinstein, and I've had arguments with Doug about a variety of things. But one thing that Doug stood for was transparency. He's the one who forced the issue about the dashboard where we were comparing ourselves with like districts. And that was something that was, you know, Judy was a little bit hesitant on that, but we got it done. Scott McKinney did a great job putting the stuff together. And that's all been lost. That's all been lost.
Well, we have a dashboard, so we actually set that up. We have.
Yeah, you do, but I'm talking about this was board. You know.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours is better. All right.
All right.
John, have a good night. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Take
John.
care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.